Brighter Shores! RuneScape's successor has arrived, boys. Since I was a teenager, I've loved the work of the Gower brothers. There's something about giving up my soul to the painful grind of an MMO that gets me so hot. You know what gets me even hotter? That's right. Locking off a huge section of the game's core mechanics to destroy my mental health. All jokes aside, Brighter Shores has been such a fun time. I've made it to episode 4 and reaped the benefits of Chronopolis. I've collected so many Santa hats that I have to have 21 storage units. And now, I have to introduce you to my new favorite way to play, CABBAGEMAN mode. Think for a second, what are you missing in life? The answer is cabbage. In CABBAGEMAN mode, you must at all times have 23 cabbages in your inventory. This idea came from the latest episode of the Tell's Tales from the Shore podcast, where Tell interviewed the community manager known as Samuel. Tell and Samuel joked about how much fun it would be to fill your inventory with cabbages and only allow yourself to use one inventory slot. Fun. Tell, Samuel, I hope you're happy. This challenge absolutely broke me. Can't you tell? Anyways, I have a lot in store for y'all. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. But first, let's head on over to a quick word from our sponsors.
Welcome to Green Grocers. Here at Green Grocers, we sell all kinds. Thank you. Here, we sell all kinds of fresh and tasty. Thank you. Here, we sell all kinds of fresh and tasty vegetables that are shipped directly from... Thank you. They're shipped directly from Hopeport, and once they arrive, we place them into... Sir, you know I could see you stealing, right? Oh man, I really need to move my shop back to Hopeport. When your mom says to eat your veggies, you can always count on Green Grocers to feed you right.
Hopeport, a place where communities flourish. Hardworking citizens grind for their ranks, filled with beautiful green, lush plant life and air that smells oddly like cabbage. What's good, lads? Welcome to the beginning of our CABBAGEMAN journey. As with any other beautiful Brighter Shores player, we start in the captain's office, designing our old boy. One item. Now, I have multiple accounts in this game. On one of the accounts, I am solely locked to the tutorial area. In that adventure, I learned a few tactics that I decided to utilize here in the CABBAGEMAN challenge. I knew that making gold with one inventory slot was going to be an issue. Ultimately, I had determined beforehand that any sort of gathering profession would take far too long. Professions like chef, gatherer, alchemy, and fishing were pretty much off the table. To generate gold, I was going to need to focus heavily on combat professions. Originally, I was going to leave the tutorial and begin training guard as usual, but instead, I had decided to finish the tutorial up until you talk to Corporal Benz. By the way, did you know that the Corporal doesn't like cabbage? I'll be back to deal with you later. With the tutorial stuck at completion while I'm still technically locked inside, I began training on the sparring guards. This will be somewhat of a grind, so I need to stay locked in and hope that I can accumulate some early equipment drops. I'll be grabbing my dropped equipments and depositing them with the Quartermaster spell one by one. This way I obviously won't be running them back and forth to the Quartermaster. Selling everything to the Quartermaster was a different story. I did have to grab one item from the refrigerator at a time, after all. Throughout my time training on the sparring guards, I managed to get a couple of good early equipment slot items, some even happening to be epic rarity. We all know how good it feels to see that sweet, sweet gold item drop. As my levels climbed in the guard profession, I was able to start accumulating a good chunk of starting silver. This silver would be crucial as I would need to buy tools later and eventually enchantments on those tools. While raising my guard profession, I was also able to begin training on the higher level sparring guards. A good rule of thumb that I learned from another player is to wait until you're like 3 or 4 levels higher than the mob you're training on. This will help you die much less while training. If you happen to have an epic or rare item that is closer to the level of the mob, it can also help you fight the mob mobs much earlier. Instead of waiting to be 3 or 4 levels higher, you may be able to train on the mob at the same level. Originally, I had planned to train until level 30 guard within the tutorial, but eventually I got curious and had to check what mobs I could be fighting. I stopped at 26 guard, and while looking at the profession list, I noticed I could already fight thieves. It also took some time here to plan out what professions I could actually do and how I would go about training them. I had multiple moments where my brain was shutting off, so bear with me. Here's our equipment setup before leaving the tutorial area. And here's how much silver I had managed to generate. Fresh out of the tutorial, I wanted to unlock a few map tiles as well as open banks for the use of the storage rift spell later on. I began exploring around while also taking in information of the area and how I'll be approaching Hopeport. I stopped and checked out the Alchemy shop, as I know Alchemy is going to be a huge impasse for most cabbagemen. One of the very earliest things I wanted to test was if I could even complete the obelisk quest. I headed to Commander Hackett and began the quest. Luckily, I spent all of that time getting 26 guard earlier in the tutorial, so the Goblin Thief turned out to be light work. Now, for the moment, we're all wondering, will the commander give me both swords, or will he say my inventory is full? And as you can see, he gave us one. I was assuming he would drop one on the ground, but he didn't. I simply needed more backpack space, so I ran the first sword to the obelisk and dropped it. I then headed back to the commander and grabbed the second sword. This allows us to get around the one inventory slot we're stuck with. Now, we can run the second sword back to the obelisk and begin working on the quest. We grab the spike from the river and head back, complete the mysterious tablet puzzle, and summon the Cryo Knight. After getting Anjay to allow the Cryo Knight to use magic, now we're able to tune the swords for the commander. Every now and again, I'll pick up the swords and drop them to reset the drop timer. This keeps them from despawning. Now that the swords are tuned, we can run them one by one back to the commander for a completion of the quest. The extra 10,000 guard experience helped us get to level 27 guard. This is going to make fighting the thieves slightly easier. Now that we finished the obelisk quest, we can head over to the thieves and finally train on some real mobs. The thieves turned out to be slightly more difficult than the sparring guards. On the first kill, I made a huge discovery that I had no idea about. The thieves were dropping 5% Hopeport XP potions. This is huge for us as we're unable to create these potions in Alchemy with only one inventory slot. I drank one potion right away, but shortly after I realized that I should be using them for a much bigger plan. If you drink an XP potion before you spend a knowledge point, it'll actually add 5% to your knowledge point gain. This is the plan that I stuck with. Every opportunity I had to gain extra knowledge, I would take advantage of these XP potions within Hopeport. This could be argued if it's worth using them and training professions or if we should be using them for knowledge gain. I personally prefer the knowledge method. It's hard to get consistent guard kills within the short time of one potion. I feel like the 5% increase is much more beneficial in knowledge than it is during training. That's just my opinion though, so don't flame me. At this point, I had over 200 silver and I wasn't keen to wasting time with depositing common items and selling them. I began prioritizing anything over common drops as they would rake in the most profit, obviously. One thing I have to address is the absolute abysmal drop table of the thieves. They drop 5% Hopeport XP potions, which is awesome. But other than that, I wasn't getting much else other than common drops. These thieves must be terrible at their day jobs. Eventually, I was able to reach level 30 guard, training on the thieves, and at that point, I was ready for a little break from combat. I figured it was time to tackle the bigger barrier I would be facing, alchemy. After all, if I tackled the profession early on and put in a lot of time, I could overcome being overwhelmed in the later stages of the challenge where a burnout may begin to show. I headed into the apothecary and brainstormed some ideas. Originally, Tell had told me on Reddit that I could only make 10% health potions, but I didn't quite understand how he meant it until I opened the recipe book. 10% health potions are literally the only potion that only requires one item to make. Every other potion is 2 ingredients per recipe. This was a huge slap in the face when it all clicked in my mind. I would have to dump more time into either running kelp back and forth, or I would have to give up on the profession altogether. Once I arrived at the beach, I began picking kelp and trying to stack them all into piles. For some odd reason, I thought that piling them up and running each pile back to the apothecary was the best method. I guess that's just the struggles of being the first CABBAGEMAN. After a while, I realized that this was just a huge waste of time and I was gonna have to bite the bullet. I had to run each and every kelp back to the apothecary, one by one. Currently, even after this episode was filmed, alchemy is still the slowest profession to grind for me. Although it does take quite a lot of time, I actually began to enjoy grabbing kelp, teleporting to Hopeport, and creating health potions. It became a bit more bearable when I listened to music alongside the grind. I also had a few instances where people recognized me from Reddit posts about the challenge. It's always so fun to see people in-game and chat. It really reminds me of the old days where AIM was our only method of chatting. I encourage anyone who is a fan or just wants to talk to say hi whenever you see me in-game. Believe it or not, I ran into Tell, and he absolutely loved the fact that I was running each kelp piece by piece. He and the Discord were all having a laugh over it. Love you guys. I always try to remember that every little bit helps towards the bigger goal. The aim is high, so we have to chip away at it slowly over time with Alchemy. I'm not trying to go for 500 or anything crazy, but I would love to have some profession capes on the account. In order to keep up with the grind and put in a good amount of daily effort, I set the goal of making 100 potions a day, minus 2 or 3 days to edit and write scripts. I started off strong on the first night and managed to make 210% health potions. This got me ahead just a bit for the next day of potion making. That way, if I had to grind IRL, I wouldn't lose much from my goal. With 200 potions made, I finally could take a break. If you were curious, by the way, those 200 potions took about 7 hours, and we managed to only get 14 Foraging and 15 Alchemy. Anyways, I was all potioned out. I wanted to go test my luck with another profession. I headed over to our old sweet baby boy Kevin. Here, I bought a piece of bacon and ran it to the kitchen to cook. At first, I assumed I could cook bacon and sell it. Sounds like an easy enough way to level chef, right? Wrong! As soon as I realized that, A, I couldn't sell the cooked bacon to the chef, and B, I couldn't deposit the cooked bacon in the fridge. Now I wanted to test if I could bring bread into the kitchen and somehow create a bacon sandwich with only one of them in my inventory. I tried a couple of different simple ideas, like dropping one and seeing if it would register the other nearby on the ground. This didn't work, unfortunately. I couldn't use any other items in the kitchen to cook, and I also had no options for food that only requires one item to cook. That would be unlocked with eggs at level 4 chef. Completely stumped, I checked the chef profession tab, only to find that I didn't get a single experience point from cooking the bacon. It looks like cooking bacon is not an option either, as we get nothing from it. Bacon is simply a requirement for bacon sandwiches, and they don't reward experience until you create the full dish. I believe most chef dishes are similar, but don't quote me on that. Without any option to cook a single ingredient dish, I began thinking of ways to maybe fool the game into thinking I had both bread and bacon in one item slot. This process works in any other similar games by stalling NPC dialogue, menus, or pickup actions, etc. At first, I was curious and clicking the recipe book while interacting with the items on the ground. This didn't work out in my favor. I didn't test much here, unfortunately, so we'll come back to this profession in just a bit. For now, I have to move on to another profession. Let's begin our fishing journey. As with any other fisherman/woman, we need to grab a harpoon from the fishing supplier. This is exactly why we trained guard early on and gathered silver. This harpoon is our first tool purchase. Luckily, it only set us back by 12 silver. A mere dent in the total pocket of almost 300 silver. With our harpoon purchase, we can now head to the beach and begin spearing flounder. Fishing is a rather nice profession early on as you unlock new methods very quickly. The grind only takes a lot of time if you need to generate silver. Since we already had generated silver earlier, we won't need to run each fish back to the market. Granted, we could use some extra silver. It's just a decision that I made personally to not waste much more time. We'll be dropping every single fish until a fish is worth around 1 silver or more. That's only in times where we need silver badly. Let's not forget that I plan to focus on combat for generating income during this challenge. If we make it to Chronopolis, then maybe we'll shift our methods of income. For the time being though, we'll be fishing and moving to each new fish as it becomes available. This means flounder, eel, and pufferfish until we unlock other nodes. Ironically, in 2008 to 2009, I managed to get 21 million fishing experience in RuneScape 2. Ever since then, I have actually despised fishing in MMOs. I mean, I'm from Florida, and I hate fishing IRL. I think it's boring. I'm sorry. Respect to the art and the culture, but I'd rather just party on the boat. Anyways, at level 14 fishing, we unlock Yellowtail, and shortly after level 15, we could purchase our second spear for 126 silver. This spear gives us a small 5% increase to fishing experience. Not the best at first, but with enchantments increasing the bonus experience cap, it'll be very helpful. Eventually, we reach 20 fishing, and since I absolutely despise fishing, it's time for a break. Remember how I said we'd come back to the chef profession in a bit? Yeah, so we're back in the kitchen now. I'm very stubborn, so I felt that it was time to continue attempting to trick the game. I really believe there may be some sort of way to get 2 items into 1 inventory slot. This time, I became focused more so on the deposit fridge. I believe that in my head, if I could run across the room and queue up an action, that we might be able to get around the impasse of chef. I would drop a bacon in the front of the fridge, run across the room using the deposit all action, and just before the bread deposits, try to pick up the bacon off of the ground. I figured if I time it right, I could get both items into my inventory. This did not work, unfortunately. And I think I was starting to draw attention as Ooga Booga noticed Cabbage Man running around the kitchen confused. Shouts out to Ooga Booga and Donkey Boy, by the way. You guys are legends. The bright adventures of Cabbage Man and Donkey Boy would go so hard in theaters. With another 45 minutes of chef stalls not working, I decided it's time to head back to combat. My guard level needed to be higher, and I could use the extra silver after purchasing that second harpoon. With the guard level of 30, I wanted to see if I could fight hooligan goblin soldiers. I ran to the north wall and began training. Here, I was able to get my hands on a rare level 28 guard sword rather early on. Already much better drops than the thieves we were previously training on. I also got a nice surprise visit from Donkey Boy. We praised the cabbage god Cabbage, and shortly after, he was slain by a goblin. We'll make sure to pour one out for the homie Donkey Boy. Never forget. Also, shout out to Rotec here, who really loved the fact that I was doing Cabbage Man mode. Once again, I really love running into you guys in game, and I always encourage you to say hi. The equipment upgrades are starting to look really nice at this point. I'm starting to really get an understanding for the gear and how it scales as well. Even if a weapon is epic rarity and it does a lot of damage, being set at a lower level can dramatically affect your damage output. I'm also starting to realize that each mob has a type advantage and disadvantage. It's strangely similar to Pokemon and how each Pokemon has weakness and resistance. Mobs in Brighter Shores also attack with a specific type of damage. Make sure you click on the mob's info screen and study what effectiveness your weapons have against them. It was around this time that I discovered the best possible way to get close-up cape shots in game. This screenshot shows a much better angle of the merchant cape. I posted this to Reddit and everyone loved it, so I hope that it helps with the wiki contributions. Once we hit 37 guard, I decided to leave the goblins and head over to the Tangled Hair Beast. This mob was honestly so much fun to fight. I learned that I was able to manipulate their movement using different heights and environment here. As you can see, this guy has no idea what to do. It makes for some fun entertainment while training. While I was out there, I ran into Passive XP, who was working on his new ult. He said he didn't expect to run into me at all out there and left some positive encouragement along the journey. Shout out to Passive XP for stopping by. Good luck with your new ult, brother. Once we hit 45 guard, it was time to move on to the bossy goblin chiefs. The Tangled Hair Beast didn't drop much in the way of equipment upgrades. Hopefully, the goblins will drop something worth... Well, I guess that's the end of the account, boys. We beat the game. Take care. Have a good one. Roll the credits. Yo, I can't believe we got an epic torso. What the f? The luck is absolutely insane out here. I'm glad we managed to land an epic torso before hitting 50 guard. Thank you, Finn Research. On the last stretch to 50 guard, the original person I had asked to get a cape shot showed up to help. Shout out to Rimka for helping me get this shot. You helped me get the first high quality cape shot in the world, and I hope your image goes down in history. And finally, after 20 hours of gameplay, we have finally achieved 50 guard. I should have hosted a huge cape party. Maybe we'll do that when I get a 200 cape. Now comes the hardest decision of our Cabbage Man journey so far. Do I buy the cape? Of course I buy the cape! What'd you think I was just gonna grind 50 guard on Cabbage Man? Not cape equipped. Looking sexy as... I feel so accomplished right now. Almost like the episode is coming to an end. Just kidding! You know, I could have ended it right here and went to Hope Forest, but I'm mentally unstable. I didn't feel as if I had enough levels for Hopeport. If I'm gonna be the first ever Cabbage Man, I'm gonna out-level the norm and set the challenge up for others to do the same. I woke up the next day, brushed my teeth, drained my bladder, slammed the Monster Energy drink, and I made 100 more 10% health potions. We're now up to 300 potions. I know these are only 10%, but it's nice to have a large supply, just in case. These potions might determine the outcome of the boss in Hope Forest. I also really do just enjoy making potions and listening to music. By the way, I'm an artist from Florida. If you're into hip-hop, alternative rock, or want to feel anything, check out my links in the description. Alright, now back to the video. After making those potions, I had an old demon to talk to. I headed to the kitchen and began testing a few more methods in an attempt to trick the game into thinking I had 2 items in 1 inventory slot. Now, I really went through a lot of effort here to break the game. I tried manipulating the queue system more in depth than before. I tried running from different distances and giving more time to queue other actions. I tried dropping, depositing, withdrawing, spam clicking, and leaving interfaces open. I even went as far as to try unplugging my internet right as a deposit happened and reconnecting it rapidly. I'll even be honest and admit that a game update occurred while I was testing, and I made sure to count the time it takes for the deposit action to happen. I timed it at the exact time the servers went down and attempted to trick the game mechanics. This method didn't work either. Even simulating CPU, memory, and graphical crashes with the console did not affect the game. I just want to say a disclaimer. I'm not trying to duplicate or manipulate the game for any bad intentions. Simply put, the goal is to get chef experience with only 1 inventory slot. Finn Research has done a solid job of preventing actions like this from occurring. I have to give my utmost respect to the team for having these barriers in place. Ultimately, after trying all of these above methods, I had given up on chef. It was time to return to fishing. After all, we had stopped at level 20, remember? I wanted to at least reach level 30 fishing before we leave for the Hope Forest. We'll always be able to come back later and level up Hope Port professions anyways. Fishing could also be a great money-making profession at a high level. Even with 1 inventory slot, I could sell the higher level fish for larger profits. In turn, it may be worth making money at some point with fishing. So, back to the flounder grind. I'm gonna bring this up here because Reddit be hating. Look at all these fish on my screen. I can't see anything. This happens to me on my main account as well. I get we could pick up items and drop them in one spot, but if I choose not to spend time picking up the common items and organizing them all into one place, why is there not just a setting to use a hotkey like Alt? And when you hold Alt, ground items appear on the screen. When you're not holding Alt, ground items don't show at all times. Maybe I'm just complaining, all right? Hate me all you want. I love to hate. Believe it or not, I was really tired at this point. My internet was going in and out and I had to fight with my router. I also had been playing for a long time. It took around 2 hours to reach the level needed to fish bass. Don't forget that I also have to drop every single fish that I collect. I'm so tired. Anyways, once we hit level 28, I headed on over to them bass fishings. We had to stop by the fishing supplier and buy a net. We're only working with 171 silver now since that cape set us back a lot. I almost wish I didn't buy the cape now. After breaking the bank, I began netting up some good bass. This place is so much nicer because the fish aren't swimming all over the beach. Wait, this is weird. I'm beginning to like fishing. The grind was nice at this point, so I got to relax and just listen to music. Eventually, Haxers stopped by and shouted out Skibbity. Apparently their kids loved the name. Then Haxers noticed me and said hi. Another fun interaction where the bass fishers got involved and we all bantered about the chat filter. Gotta love the community here, honestly. After finally reaching level 30 fishing, we could head out and make another 100 potions. The goal is to try to reach level 20 alchemy and level 25 foraging. Alchemy is a much slower profession for a cabbage man, and I would rather train it over time than constantly burn myself out. I have to keep the game fun to maintain the account as well. Every cabbage man will be different, so I'm excited to see others try this challenge. I think it only took about 60 more potions to reach level 20 alchemy. A huge goal for the account, even though it's on the lower end of the totem. Now, I'll be able to focus on other professions and put knowledge points into alchemy using XP potions. On to foraging we go! I realized that I could pick water lilies. Now, I've never done foraging before outside of some really basic stuff. Even on my main accounts, I'm not focusing on foraging. I found the location for the lilies and ran over there to check them out. Apparently, you need a pond net to harvest these. I was broke already, but I had enough to buy the net, so I made the purchase. Now that we have our net, we could grind out some foraging. I wasn't gonna keep the lilies as I didn't need them currently, and it would take too much time to run each one of them to the deposit fridge. The lilies were a great way to get me to level 23 foraging though. Once hefty monument pieces were unlocked, I would be able to grind them rather than continue with lilies. I somewhat regret buying the net as I could have used the lower level method to reach level 23. Using the monument pieces, I was ready to reach level 25 rather easily. We're not gonna run each piece back to the monument either, so it saves a lot of time. A nice and simple way to end off the Hope Port grind. After everything we've been through this episode, I can honestly say that I'm proud of our journey thus far. I would never have imagined that a simple joke between Tell and Samuel could be such a fun way to play the game. Brighter Shores has been a lot of fun to me personally, and I'm not one to sit back and pick the game apart or battle against the developers. If the game upsets me, I'll more than likely just play other games. I think as long as I can have fun and be creative though, I'll always enjoy Brighter Shores. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to keep up with the channel. I don't know how long I'll do this, but I'm more motivated when I see everyone enjoying the art I create. You all were a big reason why I even did this challenge. At first, it was just a joke until I posted about it on Reddit and everyone was very supportive. I really hope this series can satisfy you. I also would like this series to bring in new players and inspire past players to return. The game is currently in early access and it will change with time, but we always have to remember that our creativity is what makes the journey so fun. It's about the interactions with others, the moments that make you laugh, and the fun of trying new things. Happy 2025, everyone. I'll see you again soon.